Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night. It's 9:30. Me and Mark are asking the same question we ask every Monday night for the last time this season, effectively in the full season. And tonight's episode is brought to you by Specsavers, as you can clearly see, the future sponsor of the PGMOL, because boy, howdy, do they need it. What's going on with you, Mark?
Oh, good. And yeah, it feels weird, doesn't it? At the end of the season, and I'm struggling with what to look forward to because I'm really not looking forward to these post-season friendlies that are coming up.
God, we'll get into that as well. Just a quick comment from Kev. Mark and Chris look like twins. Which one of us is Danny DeVito? Do not answer that, Kev. Do not answer that. I'm the shorter one out of the two of us, mate. I'm not having it. Don't point. It's rude to point. It's rude to point you. I don't like you with glasses on. You're like Jurgen Klopp. The opposite. You're worse with your glasses on than your glasses off. But, anyhow, we've got loads to get stuck into. It is the last What's Going On officially of the season, and Newcastle United have done it. We did what we need to do. We won the game. We beat Brentford 4-2. We secured 7th. So that makes us the highest finishing United in the Premier League. What's that? Yes, that's right. The highest finishing United in the Premier League. For the first time in the Premier League history, I think it is, we have finished higher than those bellends down in Manchester. Good evening to you, Red Devils.
Do we bring up the Goldbridge tweet now? Now
do it now. Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Well, it's sweet. It's sweet to remember, Mark. I'll let you tantalize the flavor with that, mate. Because what a lovely tweet this was back in April, not even that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to admire his. No, you don't have to admire anything. He's full of shit. Yeah, I love it when things like that come back to root and to roost. To be fair, hold our hands up. We have one of our own as well.
We do
from the beginning of the season, which I did.
Not as many as him.
No,
not as many as him. That's the basis.
But I held the hands up and I went, yeah, we got one wrong. Yeah, we had a go at the fact that somebody suggested that Villa would finish 4th and Newcastle would finish 7th, and the tweet said, I can't believe it. You haven't, or whatever it was, having a laugh. Yeah, we got that one wrong.
Exactly. This is the same bloke who said Phil Foden didn't deserve Player of the Year, but we won't even get into that. But we're going to get stuck right into the first category of tonight, 7th Heaven. Before we do, oh my God, I've nearly forgot to say, if you like what you see, smash subscribe, come and join us, help get us to 8,000 subs. I nearly forget. Too busy trying to squeeze too many jokes into one sitting, mate. That's what it is. I'm losing the plot. Yeah, smash subscribe, help get us to 8,000 subs. We've had an amazing year as a channel. Those of you smash that button and refer us to family and friends. We love you for it. We are live as always tonight with What's Going On. We'll see you all jump in the comments already. We'll get stuck into that. And now the first category, 7th Heaven, Mark. So Newcastle United did finish 7th in the Premier League. It ended up being pretty routine at the weekend. There was a little bit of a fright, mate, but I think the real United showed up, didn't they, really, at the weekend to take care of business. If only they'd showed up Wednesday and the Saturday previously, we might be saying we're in 6th heaven, mate, really. But how did you feel the game went at the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, for 45 minutes, you're absolutely right. It was routine. It looked easy. Apart from the initial sort of 5 minutes, it was a walk in the park. I think early second, I think complacency just set in. Foot came off the gas. Brentford got a little bit of a foothold in the game, and all of a sudden it's back to 3-2, and you think, "Oh, hang on a minute, this is getting a little bit tasty." As they score as well, in the Red United decided they were going to go one up as well, so that put the jitters in a little bit. But I think Newcastle always likely to get another one. They looked like they could score a will at one point. I'm on the fence with the penalty. I know you were very, very much it's a penalty, but I mean, it didn't matter in the end.
I still think it was a pen. Personally, I still think it's a pen. I think he catches his leg just as he's in the box. So I think it's incredibly harsh to rule out as a pen. But as you say, it didn't matter anyway, mate. To be fair, at the end of the day. So
ultimately, it didn't matter. I think the performances from the likes of Bruno and Isak, we're going to come on to them, were very good. I thought Hall exceptional again. I think he's very much cementing that left back place. His ability to drive forward with the ball, his dribbling ability to run through the midfield with the ball is phenomenal to watch. I thought he was probably one of the biggest standouts from that game. But a really, really comfortable in the end victory and a deserved 7th place finish. Deserved to finish above Manchester United. pipped at the post by Chelsea. I think really overall, probably Newcastle should have probably finished a little bit higher.
I would say so. Got a comment coming there from Waxing Miracle Bradford fan here. Not sure what the algorithm is doing, but I'm here and you're more than welcome, mate. You're more than welcome. Go on, old Bradford City. Remember, you guys were in the Premier League not too long ago, but I've spent a lot of time in Bradford, mate. I do sometimes go there for work, so good to see you in the comments, pal. But yeah, so going back to Newcastle United, because that's what we do, mate. So if you do like that, hang around. But going back to Newcastle United, as we said, just, the dominance was there. I think it was a strange one. I just still think they got overawed by the Man United game. I really do. I just think that the game was too big for a lot of the players, and I just feel like it didn't help that Isak was off. Whatever was wrong with him, whatever Barocas and Beechams they gave him before the game at Brentford, obviously did the trick. You know what I mean? Get that boy some Cocodamo because he was on fire again against Brentford, but he looked so off against Man United. His touch was sloppy. I think if that Isak shows up on Wednesday, we beat them. We beat them comfortably. I think that some of the touches that he had, that chance he had with Gordon squaring it, I think if the penalty's given that it should have been, if Isak turns up on Wednesday, we beat Man United and we go into that game probably looking more for 6th than we do for 7th. But listen, it's all gone and dusted now. I think if you give us this, probably 3-4 months ago when we were playing with 13 fit players and there was a 17-year-old boy playing week in, week out who was brilliant, by the way. We'll get into him in a bit more detail in a minute. If you gave us 7th place, then we would have snapped your fucking hand off, Mark, wouldn't we? So 7th place is a respectable finish in the end, given all the permutations and mitigations that have been going on.
Yeah, I think if anybody had sat you down before the start of the season and gone, look, you're going to have the worst injury record in human history, and you're still on the cusp of finishing in the top 6, and you just miss out and finish in 7th, and potentially you'll probably still make Europe. I think you take that all day long with the performances for some of the games, especially the highs from games like PSG earlier in the season. It's been frustrating to watch at times. There are things that could have gone better, but there have been some real standouts, and you have to take the positives. You look and learn from the negatives. I think talking about the finishing positions and so I think away form it is a huge deal. To have only had 3 teams finish with more away defeats this season, and those 3 teams were Brentford, Luton, and Sheffield United, is a sorry stat. Newcastle finished with 11 defeats on the road. It's the same as Forest, the same as Burnley.
How do we fix that? How do we fix that? How does Eddie Howe fix that next season? I know we've got loads of post-close season stuff to go through, but just as you kind of touched on it a little bit now, I'm curious, how does he go about changing that? Does he need to change the mentality of the squad? And by that means, does he need to change the personnel? Some personnel, are they too weak-minded for playing away and figuring out how to stick to a game plan?
Injuries haven't helped, that's for sure. I think key personnel missing at times is a huge thing. But you touched
2 big ones at the weekend, by the way. If they'd been fit, I think those away games might have turned Nick Pope and Joe Linton. If they'd been fit for most of those away games, it could have been a different story.
I do. I think there's a lack of, I don't want to sound too harsh. There's a bit of a lack of big game mentality.
I agree with that. I said that as well.
In the squad. Yeah. I think you go back, you kind of touched on it with the Manchester United result. They've gone into that game. I don't think they've got it yet. There are games that they've been excellent in. But when it kind of comes to the crunch, they've been left a little bit lacking. And I think that's down to some naivety in the managers, some naivety in the players. I still think there's a huge amount of work to do in the squad. There are plenty of players that you realistically, for a top 6 Premier League side, you're not going to see them playing week in, week out. The likes of Dan Burn, Emil Kraft picking up, and he's done a decent job, but he's not a top 6 Premier League footballer. Sean Longstaff's realistically not a top 6 Premier League footballer. Again, does a job, but I think those players are the ones that step aside, or you need to start to look at different personnel, as you say, to kind of bring in that big game mentality. I think there's a lot of focus on younger players. I do think there's 1 or 2 older players that have got those big games in them, that are knocking around on free transfers or cheaper deals where you could you bring in that experience. Trippier was a prime example of that when he came in. 13 million, what was it? But the amount of big game experience he has, he's another, been a big miss, his form and his fitness this season as well. So there's a few tweaks to make, I think, in the squad in that regard. I think the manager has to learn a few lessons. But ultimately, it comes down to, I think, just the players have to step up. They have to be the ones that take those games by the scruff of the neck and go, we own this game. We have to perform. We can't hide.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. But a super chat in there from Dan Robinson. It's £2. Thank you very much, Dan. Evening, lads. Great win. Good end to a hard season. Absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree more with you there, mate. And we've got a comment there from Graham. Yeah, definitely agree with that. We missed the bite of Joe Linton. I think that was a frustrating part, I think, as well, because seeing Joe as he was at the weekend, I mean, Christ, I think we all shit ourselves when he went down, when he hit that ball down the line and he sat down. You thought, oh, fucking, here we go again. But he got back up, thank God, and he played really well. And he was just the Joe Linton that we all know and loved. And what wound me up a little bit, and I'm not trying to take away the shine from finishing 7th, but had we won that game on Wednesday with Joe Linton starting at midfield, I don't think Man United take control of that game, because that's where they won it, in the middle of the park. I think Joe Linton would have set about the likes of Fernandes and got right into him, and I think that was a mistake by Eddie. And again, as you said, Eddie needs to learn from mistakes. That's a mistake as well, where he's gone into Old Trafford with his best goalkeeper on the bench and one of his best centre midfielders on the bench, and you think, no, you need to play those players, Eddie. You need to do something there. You need to, if you'd got 60 minutes out of Joe Linton at Old Trafford, I think we win that game. I think we're in the driving seat. Same with Nick Pope. I think he saves at least one of those two shots that the Bravka just evaporates in front of, and the fucking go in the back of the net. So, again, it's all kind of done and dusted now, and we're 7th, and we're hoping for Man City to do what they do best and batter people in the cup final to keep us in the Europa Conference, which we are not snobby about, by the way, Manchester United fans. We are happy to be in that competition, happy to be in Europe. The fact that they're turning their noses up already tells you everything about that rancid fan base that you need to know. I tuned into one of the Goldbridge podcasts of the day, and they were talking about how they could set up to beat Manchester City in the FA Cup final. I was fucking laughing. It was the best comedy podcast I've ever seen in my life. You were thinking you got fucking no chance. Manchester City could play their under 14s, as David Moyes said this week, and probably beat Manchester United. But football is football, so you never know. I'm not going to get too cocky with it. But yeah, it just pisses me off still that we didn't beat them in that game on the Wednesday. But got a comment there from Darwin said, evening, question, chaps. Who will be our captain next season if Trips is a non-starter? Must be a big game leader. I think starting the season, Darren, I think Byrne will probably play alongside Fabian Schär. So I think Byrne will start as captain at centre-half. I don't think Byrne will get... There's something I was watching a guy get shots, lads, earlier. Mark, get your take on this before we talk about the two world-class players that showed up on Sunday. They were saying when Botman's fit, they think Burns is going to slip back in at left back and Lewis Hall will be out. And I shuddered when I heard it. I just can't see that the way Lewis Hall's playing that. I really can't, because Dan Burn got roasted at left back. And that was probably the most under pressure Eddie Howe's been since he's been here, when he kept playing Burn week in, week out. Justify it in press conferences and interviews all the time. And I just can't see that, mate. Can you?
I mean, I nearly threw up when you suggested that, because the thought of going back to that, when you look at how good Dan Burn has been since he switched back to centre back, he's chalk and cheese from where he was at left back. He's not a left back. He can fill in there now and again, but he's not. No, I think Botman comes back. Botman is your starting left-sided centre back, and Dan Burn becomes the option from the bench.
It's backup, or playing in cup games or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Conference League, for example, I think he'd probably be good to give Botman a break. And I mean, I know Botman's going to be out for a little while into the new season, so it's going to be a little while. But yeah, Botman comes back. I don't see Dan Burn going back to left back. Just can't.
Bruno for captain. That's a good shout by Baz Down Under. Bruno for captain.
I'll be honest. When you're talking about big game players, I think Bruno's the one. I think if Bruno stays, I think he's the Lynch, isn't he? He's the hub of that midfield. He's the one that's going to drive things forward, and we've seen that in recent weeks. Bruno, for me, I think is the one that I would stick the captain's armband on.
Definitely, that's a really good shout and a lovely segue. We do love a segue on the channel to the next category, which is Bruno and Isak again, and it kind of just doesn't take an explaining, really, Mark. Bruno and Isak, standout players again. Yesterday, continuously linked to teams who fail to win the Premier League and then try and claim that second place is better than first. Yeah, who you kidding, Arsenal fans? You ain't signing Bruno Guimaraes or Alexander Isak, especially for 80 million quid. You got no fucking chance whatsoever. I got more chance of seeing Margot Robbie and Michelle Keegan behind the bar at my local boozer than that happening, lads. I'm sorry. But you know, when you need these big players to stand up, that they did stand up. I mean, both were poor in that Manchester United game. Like everyone was poor in that game. But at the weekend, Bruno just he energized, you know, that whole team, you know, and I think it was no surprise that he was let off the leash because Joe Linton was next to him. I think he had that coverage, he had that support where he knew he could go on a little wander, put a crossing like he does for Barnes' goal, which is tremendous. I've got Theo and Harvey Barnes as well, which I'll maybe cover in the close season. I think he should change position, but we'll save that for the close season reviews. I'm not going to go too early on that. But because Joe Linton was there, Bruno could wander forward and enjoy the attacks, set up goals, you know, score the goal himself for the rebound. And I just think he grabbed that game by the balls, Mark, didn't he? And he did exactly what was required of him.
Yeah, I mean, just go and have a look at his heat map for the game, and he's playing very much in the opposition half. There's a huge sort of wedge of Bruno right across the middle of Brentford's half of the pitch, and he's again just so influential. I think you've seen for maybe the last 8 games, 9 games, I think, going back to maybe the Everton one where he was sort of the standout. He's been exceptional. He's got 4 goals in that time. I think now he's upped his goals for the season. He's got 3 or 4 assists in that time as well. I'm trying to rack my brains on that one, but his just influence has grown towards the end of the season, and we have seen an awful lot of Bruno being Bruno and not the injured Bruno that we saw an awful lot of towards the end of last season when he was struggling with that ankle, and maybe it's the start of this season too. But he was brilliant again on Sunday yesterday. Isak looked sharp. He looked fit. Certainly for the first 45 minutes, he looked deadly, and I thought he was going to go on and maybe get a couple more. To be fair, he did miss a couple of chances as well. So I mean, those are your big game players. Those are the players that have to stand up and do it. And I just think that there is all this paper talk and the bullshit media that come out and say that, you know, that Newcastle have to sell one of them. I don't believe that at all. I think that the future of the club is very much to build around Isak up front and around Bruno in midfield, and add the pieces to that. You're not going to replace them very easily at all. And look, he's certainly in Bruno's case, he's very much settled in the area. You have to go back to the captain thing. I think giving him the captain's armband as well would be a huge vote in sort of keeping him here.
That's a good shout. Just I've left Roger's comment up way too soon, Roger. Way too soon. Yeah. For Tonali, his cap, he's got a lot to prove next season, and I hope he does prove it for what it's worth. But he's got a lot to prove. Keith, I will not be slagging off Digger Barnes. Don't you worry. I'm a big fan of Harvey Barnes, but I'm not sure he's a winger. If I'm honest with you, is my main take on it. And we'll get into it when we're gonna review the squad. We're going to break it into goalkeeper, defenders, midfielders, and strikers, and we're going to give our honest opinions and marks out of 10 of the lads this season. Talk about who we'll keep and sell. But yeah, on Harvey Barnes, I think Harvey Barnes' skill is scoring goals, not creating goals. So that's why I think I'm going to advocate a change of position. But stay tuned to the channel for that one, mate. I will definitely be going into that in a little bit more detail. Big shout out to Joe Linton as well, being captain, I think, in the comments, which is a good shout. again, I think he leads by example. So one of the Brazilians would be absolutely class, to be fair. And Fabian Schär is a good shout as well. I think you're right with Bruno. I think that just an extra incentive to, to keep him at the club and dangle that carrot in front of him, saying, you're going to be the captain, you're the face of the club, you're the fulcrum of the club. That could just be maybe what he needs to go, do you know what, I will stay. Because I must admit, I've not been massively worried about him leaving, but I'm a little bit concerned about this Modric leaving Real Madrid, and then Real Madrid looking to fill that hole. Apparently looking at is Alexis McAllister at Liverpool, and Bruno fits that mold very much so for Real Madrid, and that's a little bit of a concern. I think if Madrid or Barca come in for him, I can only see him leaving for 3 clubs, if I'm honest with you. Sorry, Arsenal fans. And sorry to the Bradford fan if he's still there. I don't think he's going to go to Bradford, to be fair. As lovely as Bradford is. I can only see him going to City in the Premier League, or Madrid or Barca. They're the 3 clubs that I can see him going to. And being South American, and if La Liga come in for him and he's got the chance to play alongside Bellingham and with Mbappe potentially and Vinicius Jr., that's going to be a hard one to push away. But I'm not exactly, George. Well said, mate. Well said. But I'm not going to go too full on that, because I think Bruno is thinking about playing here. Look, he even put a magic hat on, didn't he? So he is going to stay. But going back to Isak before we move on to the next section, Isak for me is, I don't think there's another striker out there who can do what he does for us. I really, really don't. There's different types of strikers like Haaland and people like that, but this kid is unbelievable. I mean, I watched that ball he put in for Murphy's goal, and I was thinking to myself, shit, I wish we had a winger that could do that for Isak. Never mind the other way around. And maybe we will do in the summer. I know we've got Gordon, but maybe there'll be another player coming in. Will it be Elise or somebody else? Who knows? But I think with Isak, fitness and injuries have niggled at him. And I think that's the issue. I agree with Marcus. I think he is world class. People throw that tag around quite flippantly, but I think he is world class, Mark. I really do. Even at the age he is now, the way he glides across the pitch, that finish where he just does a little dummy and he slips it away, that's pure confidence. That's ice cold finishing mentality. And when you look back at the goals and you look back at Isak at the top of his form this season, he really has looked like a Champions League striker, hasn't he? I mean, we played Paris Saint-Germain twice, and the reportedly best player in the world couldn't kick his own arse. I think he did one thing when he kind of shoved Schär on his arse and did this little roll and took a shot, and you thought, oh shit, there he is. But he did nothing other than that. You look at the games Isak's played for us this season, he's been absolutely brilliant. 21 Premier League goals, 25 in total. I mean, we just need to keep him fit and mark for next season, don't we? And who knows what we can achieve.
Yeah, I think that then comes down to who then backs him up and what options there are to give him the time off in cup matches. And again, probably in the early stages of Europe too, because he probably doesn't need to play that. He can be kept for the Premier League games, for the latter stages of European competition. He certainly probably doesn't need to start travelling to the likes of Azerbaijan and places like that if you're going to play in the sort of the
I agree with that comment just quickly from Sean. He has to be 100%. He cannot play 70
as
or
close to
80%.
as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, let's look at his figures though this season. I mean, even with that, he's finished 6 goals behind Erling Haaland. He has a goals per minute or minutes per goal record of 108, which is only second behind Erling Haaland. He has a shot accuracy of 67% and a goal conversion of 33%, which is the highest down to, I think, Mateta. Mateta's higher. I think Chris Wood is higher at 34%.
Wow, what a player. If only we had Chris Wood.
But in the top 10, he's got the highest goal conversion rate, which just tells you an awful lot about the, he's only played 30 Premier League. I can't speak. They only played 30 Premier League games. He scored 21 goals. He's got 2 assists. I think the assists thing is a funny one because I kind of like him to get a few more, but he's almost had no one to kind of assist other than Anthony Gordon, and they've been really supplying him. But essentially, you want your number 9 to be putting the ball in the back of the net, and it's exactly what he's done. And
he does that
he
really
has
well.
to be, for me, he has to be protected at all costs going forward. And his injury record isn't bad overall. People have talked about, and we've seen comments about him before. So no, his injury prone. He'd never really missed any chunk of time at all until the last season and a half. So it's not really in his nature to be out injured either. But he needs a little bit of support there. Callum Wilson's just not been able to do that. Whether or not you can count on him going forward, but I think there's definitely a need for another striker just to give him that protection.
Well, that's a good segue into Baz's question there. Who's the back striker going to be? Good shout, Baz. Good shout, Baz. Yeah, but I mean, Eddie Howe's said some funny things over the last few days about some of these squad players. The one about Dummett and Richie. Christ, I nearly crashed my car when I heard that one. I had to pull over and have a breathe into a fucking paper bag. I think Eddie Howe, just don't do that to people. But the Callum Wilson one, I kind of half understand it, because when Wilson is fit, he's a great striker. He's a goal scorer. He's very different to Isak. They both, I think, help each other be the best that they can be. He's a good alternative. He can play with his back to goal. He can roll players. He's stronger. He's more instinctive in terms of going to that near post, but he's just not fit enough. He's injured for 60% of the season or something like that. He's only fit for 60% of the season. And he's 32 now, and I just don't see that getting any better for Callum. I really don't. And the backup striker for me, Sesko has this release clause of, is it 60 million euros? So let's call it, 55 million pounds or something. That has to be sorted by the end of June. That would be mine, Mark, I think, because Sesko is still young enough to not expect to be a starter in the Premier League. I think he would gladly rotate, I think, with Isak. I think him and Isak could work well as a two. I think Isak could, form part of a three with, at times if Sesko was down the middle, Isak to the left, Gordon to the right, for example. So that would be where I would spend my money, Baz, on Sesko. And I know it's big money, but we've got big money to spend this summer. People need to remember that. We've got the seller money, we've got the Adidas money. We've not spent in January, so there's money there to spend as well in terms of FFP. Sesko will be mine, Mark. Who would be yours?
Let's put it on the spot. I think Sesko will be a great sign. I can't see it. If I'm honest, it's one that I think if what Eddie has said is right, and they're looking at Callum Wilson being there, then I think the other one to come in will be a younger striker that isn't as established as probably Sesko is. I know he's not sort of starting every game, but I think you're then looking at an up and coming one that isn't going to cost you 40, 50, 60 million, because I think at that range, that player is almost expecting them to come in and start. Do you drop 60 million or 50 million on a centre forward that isn't going to start and is going to sit on the bench for a long period of time? I'm not sure they would do that. But I think he would be an exceptional signing. I really do. I can't see Solanke coming because, again, I don't think he's going to want to come and sit on a bench. And I just think for the level of player you're probably ending up having to pay the same money for Dominic Solanke as you do for Sesko. And I know which one I'd rather have.
I know I'd rather have.
It ain't Solanke.
So it could be interesting. It could be one of those kind of scouting missions where you pull a player from France or Italy or Brazil or something like that, where you go, wow, where the fuck was he hiding from? Could be one of those potentially, but it'd be interesting to see what's going to go on. But I think there's certain players I think need to move on from the club. I think Dubravka's definitely gone, because I think he would have started probably the weekend if he hadn't, if he was part of the picture. But I think the fact that he was dropped as well is a pretty clear indicator that he's gone. I think Miggy has to go. Miggy's done now. I think he's not going to get any better. He probably deserves to go just for that fucking dive alone, to be honest with you, against Brighton. But there's a couple of players that really do need to go. And the thing is, unless they can find some way to keep Wilson fit, I'm just not sure he would be the answer. But just before we move on, one last point on Bruno Guimaraes. Now, we've gave TalkSport a lot of shit on this channel, as you've probably realised when you've been watching, especially with my rants. This one kind of passed me by, and thankfully, the magical world of social media reminded us, and someone else who didn't forget was Bruno Guimaraes. So this was the picture from the TV that Bruno decided to post. And you can see there that this is the season highs. Now, you go down the list, all of the players have different statistics. The distance covered for Bruno Guimaraes this season is 423 kilometers. And he decided to put, he isn't athletic, which was exactly what that miserable shithouse twat Danny Murphy said about him on TalkSport. And if you want any more evidence that Danny Murphy is a complete and utter bellend, then that is one right there. And well done, Bruno, for mugging him off. Very proud of you, son.
Yeah, Danny Murphy is the most miserable pundit. Do we call him that? Well, he's the most miserable pundit I've ever seen. He's just so dull, and seemingly, he has no idea what he's talking about either. To be fair, had he come out and said Bruno was slow, maybe he's got on board with that, because I don't think Bruno's very, very quick at all. His turn of pace is almost a little bit like mine, but he covers an awful lot of ground. There's a huge difference between being athletic and being said somebody is lightning, or they cover the ground quickly. He covers the ground, he covers it well, he does what he needs to do. He is athletic in that regard. Just Danny Murphy, man, honestly.
Yeah, the world-class former midfielder that was Danny Murphy commenting on somebody like Bruno Guimaraes. Yeah, Ian's just saying, miserable bastard, say it, Mark. Say
he
it,
absolutely is.
Yeah. Danny Murphy's so boring. If I was stuck in a lift with him, I'd open the doors and climb out and get the stairs. That's how miserable and boring he is.
I'm doing a Bruce Willis and going out the top of the lift.
Yeah. Exactly. Vera my detonators. Straight out, mate. Straight out in the fence. Hello to any German fans, by the way. That wasn't meant to be offensive. It's obviously a die-hard quote before you get upset. So yeah, moving on. You don't get that in other channels, I'll tell you. So moving on to the next category. Kangaroo 2 in our player words there on somebody I will not do an impression of. Believe you me, will lose subscribers if I try to do an impression of that bloke. Ooh, scary times. But Newcastle are flying over to Australia, the land down under, if anyone didn't know this already, in quite possibly the most pointless football game of the entire year. I don't really give a shit about it, Mark. I don't even know when it's played. I certainly won't be staying up to watch it. I don't really give a crap. I'll check the score. Grant Qual is going to play just because he's Australian. I don't know whether they're going to be wearing the potential new Adidas kit, which we may have an image of in the comments. I'm going to have a little look around while you're thinking about that. I'm going to have a look for the Adidas kit. But that's the only exciting thing for me, is potentially, are we going to wear the new Adidas kit? But what are your thoughts on this game, mate? Are you bothered?
I think it's the most ridiculous thing when there's all the talk of too many games and the players being asked to do too much. I get it's a moneymaker. I guess it's I get that it's for fans overseas to see players, but when you've had a season like Newcastle have had, when you've had the number of injuries that Newcastle have had and the number of games that have been played, I think going a few days after the end of the season to go and play a couple of absolutely meaningless pre-season friendlies is just insane. I mean, they're playing on, is it tomorrow night?
I think it's tomorrow night. I think it is, isn't it?
I can't remember. But again, I mean, you're talking about playing a friendly game 3 days after the end of the season. It's fucking ridiculous. After what is it, a 20-hour flight these days to Australia as well? I just think it's ludicrous. Yeah, as Waxing Miracles put in there, I guess it helps with FFP.
Yeah,
there'll be money that comes in from it, and I understand that, and to a point, but just this close to the end of the season, I get it if it's pre-season. You know, you get all the players back, you go for a pre-season tour, maybe do Australia and Japan as a two and go and do that. You know, we saw the Premier League tournament last season, or pre-season in America, which I thought was really, really good. But to do it so close to the end of the season, just to risk players who were already out on their feet after the long season and the number of games that they had,
and the tournament, and the international tournament on the agenda as well. You're daft as well, isn't it?
You're 4 weeks away from the start of the Euros too. I just think it's ludicrous, and it's this is the kind of thing when the Premier League talk about wanting to go green as well. And this is another thing when they start to really push the fact that they've just sent their players thousands and thousands of miles around the world to go and play another game of football after the end of this. I just think it's nuts. I also don't like the fact that they're charging for it either. That's another opinion.
That's another conversation altogether. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a fan. Look, I get not everybody. People will be excited by it. People will love to see it. Obviously, the guys in Australia will love to see it. But for me, no. But that's my opinion.
No, that's it is a money-making scheme, as Liam says. That's exactly what it is. It's all about boosting commercial revenue. Martin's saying they must have looked into it. There must be some market exploit. Talk of us getting World Cup last time out. Is football more popular over there? Who knows? I tell you what, Martin, we're popular over there. We should have been on a trip, Mark. Our podcast tracks quite high in Australia last time I checked, as far as I know. So hello to all Australian fans. But there has been rumours that this is apparently the new Adidas kit. Now, I like it from the front. But the back, I don't like that huge big white space at the back that's been left there, unless it's got black letters on, which is fine. But I suppose the question is, do you think they'll premiere the Adidas kit in the game, or do you think they're going to leave that for a huge big launch with Adidas?
I'd imagine there's going to be a big launch for it, because I don't know when the deal ends with Castori. And when the Adidas one actually kicks in,
technically it ends when the season ends, doesn't it? So they could wear that. It's a preseason friendly, effectively, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know what the ins and outs of their agreement will be, and I would imagine they'll want to do a bigger release or a bigger promotional release here.
7th of June, says Ian, is the big launch, I think, for Adidas. So yeah, it might not be the Adidas kit, then it might just be the normal kit.
I just think it sort of would have been wrong to take it away from Newcastle, to do it in Newcastle, where if you do something like that with the players and all that involved in it, then that has to be done here. I wouldn't do that overseas. But again, if you don't mind if people have a different opinion of that. It's just my take on it.
Well, that's exactly it. But we'll see what happens. I mean, if it's a 10 o'clock kickoff, unfortunately, I will be in a meeting then, so I won't be able to watch it. And that's what I said. I mean, just give me about 20 minutes, half an hour. I'm just going to go check the first half out, and I'll come back. Just you wait over there in the corner. I don't think that'll go down very well, to be fair, because I do have the day job to go and get stuck into as well. So moving on to the last category of the night, Mark. Out of Toon, the last category of the season. Out of Toon, it's bumper. We've got loads. Actually, before Out of Toon, we've done this 3 weeks in a row now. We might as well get stuck into this. So we're not going to go out of Toon. We're going to go back firmly in Toon. And he may have missed the game, and he has won us a lot of games this season. But Anthony Gordon won a good few hearts as well, as you saw on social media. It was an absolutely phenomenal story. There was a tweet or post, if you want to call it that, Elon Musk. It went out, from a I think it was a football fan or a woman on X, and she basically said that these young kids were in hospital, obviously getting treatment for conditions, and Anthony Gordon was their favorite player. And then, she said she shared it and she tagged Newcastle in and said, if anyone can, pass this to Anthony Gordon, just it'd be nice if you could, send some stuff or whatever. And quick as a flash, no pun intended, Mark, Anthony Gordon visited the kids in hospital. It was a beautiful video of him signing the shirt. There he is there with the two kids, smiles beaming ear to ear. And just what a lad this kid is. I mean, not just as a player, we all had this misconception of him when he signed, as a character, we saw him for Everton getting into fights and all that stuff. But, not only has he been a brilliant footballer, but he really is growing into an unbelievable role model human being, isn't he, as well? Do something like that when he's injured, and he's obviously got, European championships to worry about and, his club and all that. But just to get down to that hospital with a shirt to sign for those kids and spend time talking to them like he did, as a human being, it was just fucking class, wasn't it? I mean, no better word for it, Mark, really, was there?
Yeah, look, I think it's phenomenal. I think as she put it, was Laura T. I think was the
good show for Laura. Yeah,
on X, and it's the message that she put on and said, 12 hours in a phone meeting, amount of retweets and DMs later, this angel Anthony Gordon contacts me and says he's on his way to Joseph at Manchester Children's Hospital, like on his way. He just jumped and went, and I think he just goes to show the measure of the kid. He's just brilliant. He's been brilliant with his football. Since he's come, he's done everything right, and he's just a brilliant human being as well. And it was just such a heartwarming one, and the video as well of him going in to meet them as well. I mean, it's just a wonderful, heartbreaking, but
It was
wonderful all at the same time, and absolutely brilliant. Well done, Anthony Gordon. That's a phenomenal one for you.
Yeah, absolutely class. I mean, like you say, everything that he's done even from the minute he signed, when he was saying that there's this misconception of me and I'm going to show people I'm not like that. And then you saw him on the overlap with Gary Neville down Whitley Bay Beach, our hometown, mate, old Whitley Bay. And he was brilliant. He was so articulate and intelligent, and he spoke so well. And even about the VAR thing, he spoke so well as well, didn't he, about that after the game? And, just absolutely brilliant, really proud to have him as a player playing for this football club, really, and his family should be proud of him as well as a human being, because I just thought that was absolutely class. It really, really was. So well done, Anthony Gordon. And then the other player we're gonna talk about here is another young superstar for us. And before we do get into the official Out of Toons, and it's Louis Miley. So Louis Miley had an amazing. So you're looking behind you. You've got a young superstar behind you there. Brilliant.
He hasn't.
But has it really?
No, he hasn't. I had to check. Thanks, Ty.
The only thing I'm disappointed at, Ty, is it wasn't Ian Toon Trader that posted that, because that would have been right up his street to have done that. But well done, mate. You made him look. But yeah, going back to Louis Miley. So Louis Miley posted this kind of highlight reel on X, and he just said, "A season I'll remember forever. Thank you, Geordies, for all the support you've shown us home and away. It's been a top season full of opportunities and learnings. I'll never forget walking out St James's Park to play in the Champions League. Enjoy your summer. See you all soon." And it was just a little montage of Louis Miley playing, Mark. And it's just a little reminder to anyone who's forgot. I mean, I do consume other Newcastle content as well. Not one of these channels that just listen to our own stuff. And I have heard some people, and I won't name them, almost insinuate that Louis Miley isn't as good as Sean Longstaff. And listen, Sean's a really lovely lad, and I always say that and caveat that. But Louis Miley has shown, I think, in a handful of games that he's played, that he's just got a bit more about him than I think Sean has ever had, really. I think Anderson, arguably, you could say, is the same as well. And I'm not trying to say, let's sell one, keep the other, etc., etc. But out of the three Geordie boys, Mark, I mean, Louis Miley is probably the one that's got you the most excited, because the glimpses of what you saw at a raw young age of 17, to play in the games he played and perform the way he performed. He's been unfortunate with his back injury, because I think he could have added to the squad in these last 3 or 4 games where we needed big results, and he could have given us a different option with his quality of passing and his vision and his use of the ball and everything. But I'm so excited to see this lad have a good pre-season and come back again next season and show us that he's even better than he was this season, Mark. So massive breakthrough season for Louis Miley, wasn't it?
Huge. Absolutely huge. I think he's got such a high ceiling. Yes, there's elements of his game he possibly needs to look to improve, but he's still a kid. At the end of the day, he's got an awful lot of time ahead of him to learn. So, yeah, definitely a massive future. On Hinnies, I've been once. I have to admit,
I've been once,
and I've only just been as well, because we went for my mum's 80th, and it was really, really good. So I'll give you a shout out for that, because they were really, really good. So
yeah, excellent. Kev's got a lovely little segue for us there. We sent the wrong Longstaff to Canada. He says that's a lovely little segue, Kev, because that's my next one. The first official Out of Toon. He's at it again, the lad. Young Matty Longstaff with another goal for Toronto. Now the run was Frank Lampard. The finish was a bit Frank Skinner, to be honest with you, because it kind of hit off his heel. I was thinking of another Frank, to be honest with you. But it hit off his heel. It went in the back of the net. Still went in. And Matty's really recaptured his form, hasn't he, mate, in terms of going over to Canada. It's great to see, because I do like Matty as a lad. I'm devastated it didn't work for him here. I just think Howe came in maybe a bit late for Matty to really get the benefit of Howe. But you can see there's a player there. I always thought he could be that attacking midfielder making those runs in the box to get goals, because he's a good finisher, and he's doing it at Toronto, which is amazing to see.
he didn't really miss that, to be fair. So, I mean,
Indeed.
it's very, very nearly that one would have been awful. But no, it's good to see him back playing. It's good to see him back with a smile on his face on a football pitch, isn't it? And I hope he does well. And I hope that leads into something much bigger for him as well. And maybe he's coming back and playing in England again at some point, because he's undoubtedly talented. He got a horrendous injury as well. It kept him out for some time, and he was bruised. I mean, he
Big
was
time.
probably the epitome of the bruised sort of players, wasn't he? The others that have managed to come back, but I think he's probably been the one that was affected the most by Steve Bruce. So it's great to see him. Great to see him playing. Great to see him scoring goals and playing with a smile on his face.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's great to see Matty back, and long may continue. But we've had loads of stuff going on outside of the world of Newcastle. So the first place I think I've got to start after Matty is it was the end of a legend, end of an era in terms of the Bundesliga this weekend. It was Marco Reus's last game for Borussia Dortmund, and he did leave in style with a goal and an assist. But this was absolutely spectacular from the yellow wall. You know, war flags eat your heart out, and it was really emotional, wasn't it? Obviously, danke Marco. I'm no fluent in German, but it means thank you, Marco. And just superb. I mean, what a player, but so tragically struck down by injuries, Mark. And he was already a brilliant player, but had he not had them injuries, you know, what could he have done, you know, with his career?
I really like him. He's such a good footballer. And you're right. I mean, when you lose time through injury, it does affect you. But he's just one of those ever present players. It feels for Dortmund for the last certainly. I'm trying to think how many games he's actually played now. I can't remember the number, but he's just been a huge part of that Dortmund side. I think obviously going away and coming back as well. Just brilliant, and that tribute is just phenomenal, and that's football fans at their best. War flags do it tremendously. But I mean, that's absolutely a standout. It's just phenomenal, and he's gonna move on now. He's 34. He's got time left. He's one of those players, and I touched on it earlier. Maybe he's not for Newcastle, but can go and give somebody some real experience in their squad, and really sort of be the player that guides some
Leader.
of the younger players. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Go and
absolutely.
go and take a
He's
step.
Yeah, he's got just for reference 428 games for Borussia Dortmund, 170 goals and 131 assists. Which isn't too bad, to be fair, given the fact he's been injured quite a bit. Darren wants him at the Toon. Roos to the Royce to the Toon. Why
Do you know
not?
what?
I'd take him.
It's not a bad shout. Yes, he's older, but his ability with the ball in itself is
Big game mentality, mate. Big game mentality as
yeah.
well.
He regularly gets double figures in sort of goal contributions in the season. Even at this age, he's 34. He's got 6 goals and 8 assists this season.
Yeah.
Obviously he's on the decline in terms of his physical ability, but the brain's there, the big game mentality there, the ability to be able to lead and to bring players along. It's not a bad shout. Maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea, but somebody like that, just to come in and give you that experience in games, like we said before, I mean, it's invaluable. You can't teach that.
No, I think Liam's right. I think he may end up in Saudi, to be fair. Nice big payday towards the end, potentially, as well. But yeah, you know, great send off for him as well. And some of the players who also have legendary status, who didn't quite play as many games as Marco Reus, is this fella. Scott Carson won another Premier League title at the weekend as Manchester City obviously won the Premier League. As I said, contrary to Arsenal, just thinking that the first place doesn't really matter. Almost like it was that episode of Friends. Good job, little buddy. No, you need to win the league to actually be the champion. Second place gets you fuck all. So Scott Carson has now won 11 trophies, Mark, for Manchester City, having only played 107 minutes of football. Wow. That is the Mark Gillespie of champions winning teams, isn't it really, mate? Fuck me.
How do I get a gig doing that? I'll go and play 107 minutes and God knows how many seasons to. I don't mind. I'll go and sit on somebody's bench for
Yeah.
10 grand a week or whatever Scott Carson gets paid. Yeah, I mean, and you know exactly why they've done it, and I think it's the same reason Newcastle have done it with Gillespie. It's that homegrown player on the bench that costs you absolutely nothing. He's never going to play. You're going to have 2 goalkeepers ahead of him. Yeah, he's still. It is a strange one, isn't it? But that's not the best part of that story about Scott Carson.
No. He really enjoyed himself at the Manchester City title-winning party, didn't he? As you might pull up the picture in a second. And apparently, he was escorted out by security. Here he's looking rather sheepish. That is not the Rock, I don't think, in front of him, Mark. I don't know who that guy is, to be fair, but he's making sure Scott Carson leaves, and he looks like he's either just grabbed somebody's arse or had a piss on the dance floor. So he's got that look about him. Then it's time to leave. It's time to go, Scott. And he's obviously gone from the title-winning party. But I mean, Pep Guardiola managed to keep himself in a little bit more decorum, didn't he? Really, in terms of there he is looking like Lex Luthor with his cigar. What was the other guy? Obadiah in Iron Man. But that's what he looks a bit like with the old cigar there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that's an older picture. But I think the question is Pep the greatest manager of all time?
Is he for you?
No, that might sound.
Who is then? Sam Allardyce.
Tony Pulis. Let's just go through the list.
Best England record, 100% Sam Allardyce.
It's really difficult to kind of go Pep because he's had the benefit of managing a Barcelona team that was great, a Bayern team that was brilliant, a Manchester City team that was brilliant and absolutely loaded with cash. But he continually wins. He continually gets the best performances.
Yeah. You knew they were coming. Well, I think I was the best manager. Yeah. I get what you're saying. It is hard to say he's the best, isn't it? Because he's had all the the big clubs and the money and La Masia and all that kind of stuff. It's really difficult to say who. I mean, again, you can't look past Ferguson, can you? Really, in terms of the best, as much as he was a twat, as Liam says there, he took over a club that was really, it was on its arse, really, in terms of not winning anything, and he turned them from that to serial winners, didn't he? And the way he brought in the younger players and bled them in, and you got to say that's probably a better manager than Pep, in all fairness, isn't it?
I think exactly that. I think when you look at what Pep's done, he's done it, and he's had, as George has said, Pep's had all the toys. He has. He's coming, and yes, he's not really broken the bank for anybody. He's not gone and spent £100 million on a flop of a midfielder, as Manchester United have done, or nearly 100 million on a winger. That's been a flop, as Manchester United did. Granted, he spent 100 million on Jack Grealish, who hasn't set the world alight, but he's done all right. He's certainly done a hell of a lot better than Anthony has. But generally, his signings have been shrewd. They've been really good, but he still spent an awful lot of money. And the way that Ferguson built that team, and he built it through the academy, he built it through
rounded up, really, wasn't it? Yeah.
A bunch of kids. As Alan Hansen famously was quoted saying, "You won't win anything with kids."
Brilliant.
Well, he won everything.
He was the gold bridge of his time, was Alan Hansen.
Yeah,
to cover like that.
But I don't think you can look past Fergie for that. Maybe he's not the greatest manager of all time. I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Because my due to age, I can't go back further. Somebody like Shankly, a better manager than Pep was.
Jock Stein at Celtic as well was a good manager. You got a lot of these big managers. I mean, Wenger's a good shout, Trevor, as well. I mean, Wenger changed football from a drinking culture to fitness, nutrition, and the machines that you see today. Yes, they are athletic, Danny Murphy, those players. Those players that you see today, it was largely influenced by Wenger as well, wasn't it? Really, So there's a lot of good managers to name out there. I mean, I think Pep's Don Carlo's a great shout, Waxon. I mean,
definitely,
he quite often gets understated, and I think the job Ancelotti's done everywhere he's been is been second to none, really. And Jose as well. Jose doesn't get as much praise because he's tailed off a little bit over the last few years. But what Jose did from not even being a player, to doing what he did, was sensational, really. But yeah, I mean, I think Pep's very much the poster boy, isn't he, for management now, that everybody looks at him and waxes lyrically about him and all that. I mean, if you ask Pep Guardiola, he'd probably say Johan Cruyff, because he transformed Barcelona, didn't he? In terms of the whole identity of how Barcelona played football. And he's, Johan Cruyff is a god in Barcelona, isn't he, really, in terms of what he did? So, arguably, you can say Cruyff's up there.
I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a difficult one to judge against different eras, because each era plays football and it has different things that go with it. So in this particular era, he's probably the best manager.
Yeah.
I think Ancelotti's probably right up there with him. But certainly Pep has to be up there in the top one or two. Do you know what I mean? He's definitely there. But
Brian Clough,
you're going to have a bit. Yeah, you go back to the late 70s, early 80s, and Clough's number one, because you don't take a Nottingham Forest team like that and win the European Cup twice. That just doesn't happen. But he did it. So yeah, I think for each era you're going to have somebody. It's like comparing players, Maradona and Messi, for example, or Maradona and or Pele and Ronaldo or R9. And do you know, it's really tough, because the eras of football are different, and the way the game is played is completely different.
Absolutely. Nice comment there from Geordie Revolution. Thank you guys for all the work this season. Thank you, mate, for that lovely comment. We really appreciate that. It's very nice of you to say. But moving on to the next Out of Tune section. My God, we've got lots of sections in here tonight. Let's have a look. So one thing that wasn't particularly good was the playoffs. Now, the playoffs are always exciting, and you always have a bit of drama and everything else. But the scenes that we saw at the end of Southampton and West Bromwich Albion, there was a decent game as well, was absolutely disgusting and has no place in football. You can see there just from the picture that ruining the stadium, both Saints and West Brom fans at it. And it was just disgusting, Mark. It was a throwback to those horrible days of, Hillsborough and stuff like that. And you just don't like to see it, and it shouldn't have any place in the game. Kids go to the game, people take their kids to the game, their elderly parents at the game, and it's just not necessary. And if it was me, I would ban the Southampton fans from going to Wembley as a punishment for this, because football's got to crack down hard on this. I think this is fucking disgusting. People could have got hurt or worse in amongst all of this, and there's no place for it, man.
Yeah, both sets of fans have really let themselves down there. It's not a good look at all. Banning them is probably a little extreme, but it's really not a great look for that at all. Yeah, thank you, mate. Thank you for coming and joining in, even though we managed to get in somehow into the algorithm to get you in tonight. So thank you for sticking around, mate.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah. And sorry, Liam said that the Prime Minister was also at the game. Hang on a second. Mark's fell off his chair. The Prime Minister was at the Southampton game as well, which is probably more enough of a reason not to want them to win at all. But yeah, it just, for me, it was unnecessary. I know it's a passionate game and they all want to get to the promised land and everything else, but you can't forget yourself, in a football stadium like that, especially when there's kids there and everything else. He's back. He's pulled himself back on his chair. He fell off your seat there. Either he cat knocked the camera off. But I'll just say, Mark, you can't forget yourself in those moments, regardless of how passionate and exciting. George is worried about you there. Man down. Exactly. But just on the Southampton fans quickly, mate, like I say, you can't forget yourself there. Would you advocate them being banned from Wembley for that?
No. I don't think you can ban an entire fan base from Wembley for the actions of what ends up being a few. I think that's probably a step too far. I think heavy fine for this. I think a warning that next offence probably does that a ban probably does come with it. But I mean, the dickheads that have got involved in that, they really are.
That's the comment of the night from Graham. Slipped on some catch.
Well done,
Absolutely
Graham. You won that
well
one.
done. Superb, Graham. You've thrown him off his stride there. But yeah, Southampton fans, shame on you. Absolute shame on you. Tell you what, who else was shame on you? I've never seen anything like this in my life. So this was a Dutch referee. So Dutch referee has been banned for life for celebrating with a team that he officiated against. He gave the losing side 4 red cards and added 15 minutes of injury time. And later on, he celebrated with the team and held the trophy after the match ended in a draw. I mean, fuck me, Howard Webb must be on the blow at this guy straight away, trying to get him at the Premier League, mate. He's that bad, isn't he? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, as optics go for a referee doing that. I mean, he has come out and said that he's done this before with different teams, that he celebrated with them and he's got involved in the celebrations and stuff. And the 4 red cards were justified, and he defies anybody to look at them and say they're anything. But come on, you've got to know better as a referee, haven't you? You cannot get involved like that, especially with a side that you've just reffed the game, for. It's insane.
Yeah, no, we I think we did talk about the VAR one, Trevor, in one of the rants where we talked about Gordon. I mean, obviously, we'll keep an eye on that one coming up about the VAR being voted on. Mark, I think I was an advocate for binning it. What was your take on VAR? Would you bin it or would you keep it?
I've been the people who were using it. That's for sure. I think they're fucking useless. The VAR in itself should work. The technology is right. I don't like the offside. I think the blurred pictures and the lines are shit. I think they have to go to an automated version of it or a semi-automated version of it. I like the idea of the daylight rule for that, but it's got to be used properly. And the referees and the assistants and the VARs have got to do it right. And if they can't bin it, I'm a great advocate of the fact that if you can't do it right, then you shouldn't use it at all, because they're just using it wrong. There've been so many cases of it being completely and utterly fucked up this season. I just think that you have to, as Gordon said, you get it right or get rid of it.
No, I agree. I totally agree with that. I think it needs massive improvement if they're going to keep it. Massive improvement, and I'm just not sure the PGM will up to. I mean, that's why I say bin it. But anyway, the last category of the night, as you may or may not know, we have been running the Evermore FPL League throughout the season. It's Mark's baby. I don't do FPL. I get stressed out enough looking at my own team, let alone somebody else's players. It winds me up. It sets my teeth on edge. But Mark runs the FPL for Evermore. And Mark, we've got the final league table, haven't we, mate? Do you want to run through it?
Yeah. I'm a bit disappointed that I'm not in that picture, I'll be honest with you. I did finish in 21st position, so I did have a better end of the season than perhaps I thought. I did completely mess up the other week when Everton played on the Friday night. I logged in at 6:30 to make my changes for the week and realised that I missed the cut-off and missed being able to put Haaland back in my side for the week and captain, and the fucker went and scored a hat-trick, didn't he? So, yeah. But congratulations, Stuart McVitie Matthews with Do the Botman, who won the title this season and will win the Newcastle Club Shop voucher, which we'll get sorted. So if you're watching, Stuart, please drop us a line. We'll put it out on socials as well. But yeah, drop us an email. We'll get that sorted for you. Interestingly, looking at the table, I believe it was Bobby's legacy. So Michael, who was the top going into the last week, and a sort of relatively poor last week has cost him the title. So unlucky, mate. But congratulations to Stuart. And then just point out of regular ones in here, Roger's in there as well. Our former friend of the show, James, has managed to get himself into 7th. So of the ones that have been on the show, he's finished top. So I'm not bitter about that at all.
Yeah, Roger's buzzing that he's made the top 10. Waxing is Love and Botman Begins. What a great name that is as well.
Great name.
Botman Begins, absolutely superb. But yeah, it's what was the one there? George is saying, "I love Ken Dodd's dad's dogs died." Where was that one?
It's funny enough. It's right at the bottom there. It's Graham, who I work with. So yeah, that's his team name.
What a way to finish the last What's Going On of the year. Absolutely superb. Just before we sign off for the night, guys, massive thank you to all in the comments, new comments as well, and obviously the regulars who have been with us right through the season. We love doing this. We love interaction with you guys. It really helps the channel grow, but also helps us just enjoy ourselves. Really, What's Going On is more of a fun show, Mark, isn't it? It's a bit more looser than the previews and reviews and everything else as well. But you guys make it just as much as we do. We love doing it. In terms of, I think some of you have asked if we're going to do it in the summer. I don't think we'll be doing it in terms of the way that we always do it, but there'll be a lot of content in the summer in terms of the analysis of the season. We'll be here with Rumour Has It, left, right, and centre. We may very well have a look at our lads in the Euros. The England squad's announced tomorrow, Mark, isn't it? So we'll be keeping an eye on that in terms of who's in from a Newcastle perspective as well, and maybe cover the lads in the Euros across the summer as well. But blink and we'll be back waiting for the next season to begin with pre-season friendlies and obviously the Premier League, and hopefully the lads can build on a 7th place finish, and we'll have European football to look forward to after Man City have battered Goldberg's fucking boys in the FA Cup final. Who's Goldberg? There's a wrestler.
Goldberg. You've drifted into
WWE. It's getting late. My teeth aren't in. It's getting late. But yeah, so thank you so much, guys, for all the love this season. We always appreciate it. And come and join us again, like I say, for the content over the summer and for next season. Have a belter wherever you are. Breathe, the season's over. 7th place. Well done, lads. And well done, lads and lasses, in the comments for the Evermore community. And we'll catch you later. Cheers.
Take care, guys.